Alrighty, friends. This is a strictly Model Maniac Patreon video. Super impromptu. Just gonna rock and roll. Gonna show you guys the landscape of what you guys are part of. Gonna go through the model, explain every column kind of quickly, and show you how to use the Discord as well. All the different tabs, all the different tools, all that stuff in there. Let's rock and roll. Let's have a good time. Happy Rocket Mortgage Week. Alrighty, so right away, I'm going to zoom in enough here so we can see all the columns without having to see everybody down here. When you go into the tool, into the model, the Google Doc, you're going to want to hit File, Make a Copy, Make a Copy. Then you're going to hit Make a Copy, boom chakalaka. Now this copy is yours. You can edit it how you feel. You can filter it how you want. You can do all of that stuff. I believe you can also filter on the original document since it doesn't change anything from my side. I don't know, actually. But just make a copy for yourself, and then you're going to be good to go over there. As Tuesday unfolds, I'll put the tea times in the round one tea time column. Here's the DraftKings pricing, pretty self-explanatory. Projected ownership for the week, for week-long tournaments will be in this column. This is upside versus DraftKings ranking, which is basically using this upside column, which is being subtracted from the DraftKings price. This upside column is using my model ratings, all the rankings and things that we use to generate the safety and power rating over here. And it's also including top 5 and top 10% finish rates, which you can find on the side of the model. So basically, guys that have high end finishes all the time will be getting a bump in the upside. And then safety will be using top 20s and top 40 rates because there's some guys that just like to be in that safe zone between 40th and 10th. You know, no one like being inside the top 10 of a PGA event is daunting. And some people just can't handle that. Their way of playing golf on tour is just repeatedly finishing inside the top 40 kind of thing. So that's the one thing here, upside versus DraftKings ranking. That's where you're going to be finding all of that kind of. See where like Matt McCarty over here, his upside is 7th, but DraftKings rank is 60th. So that's a big switch around over there. Then we're going to be looking at points gained per DraftKings price, trying to identify some value from the price of the golfer versus what they're capable of. And it uses these 3 columns over here to kind of essentially give us what we're looking for from a golfer's standpoint. So the last couple, I need to change this to yellow so it makes more sense. Okay. So the event points gained is going to be using course history points gained. So points gained on the field is, we're not using total points scored at an event. We're using points gained because points gained is like strokes gained versus versus scoring average. Because if you're playing the Rocket Mortgage or you're playing Oakmont, whoever's playing the Rocket Mortgage is going to out gain. Is going to score better than everyone playing at Oakmont. But the points that they gained on the field is not going to necessarily be reflected in that because everyone's going to score more points. The last person playing the Rocket Mortgage is going to score more points than JJ Spahn. We finished 1 under par. You know, the cut is going to be so deep. So you have to understand how they played given that week's situation. And this is where the points gained really helps because it's taking the average of the field and subtracting that away from the golfer's points that he scored that week to kind of get a feel for the points that they've gained on the field. He has points gained over the last 12 months and he has points gained over the last 3 months. So the trending column shows you, okay, Luke Clanton, last 3 months kind of trending backwards. The last 12 months, he was scoring 20 points on the field and he's been losing 20 in the last 3 months. Hasn't played much, but you get the gist there. So you can see who's trending. This points gained divided by DK price uses all 3 of these metrics over here. Then we've obviously got the names. We've got the boxes that we check. So all of these boxes are color coded. No box means, you know, you've got a red name. Orange, yellow, blue, pink, purple, and then green is the Patrick Candys of the world who checked all 6 boxes. This week we're checking strokes gained off the tee on courses longer than 7,200 yards. Strokes gained on easy courses, top 5 at the Rocket Mortgage. Course strokes gained, weighted strokes gained approach, which kind of fits the Rocket Mortgage itself. And then just the model rank, because sometimes guys are just finishing outside the top 20 of all these other 5 rankings, but the sum of their parts is greater than the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, I guess. Is that either way? You get what I'm trying to say. So the model rank helps those kind of guys out. So as we see, safety ranking is using the safety power rating, which is, I like to use this to kind of see, okay, what is the difference between, because you can be second or third in the model, but it's not necessarily reflecting how big of a gap there is between each golfer. Like Colin Morikawa, 4.6, Patrick Cantlay, 4.3. So Harry Hall and Ben Griffin kind of finding themselves on a very similar playing field, hardly any difference there. Then there's kind of a small jump between 3.9 and 3.5, for 5th and 6th place over there. So it helps you understand that. And then the upside power rating is the same thing in this column over here, kind of just figuring out what's going on. And you can see by Harry Hall's profile what I mean by using the top 10, top 5 rates versus top 20, top 40s. Here's Harry Hall's finishing positions over the last little while. 0 top 5s, 16% of the time he's inside the top 10. But he's inside the top 20, 42% of the time, and inside the top 40, 71% of the time. So he's a very safe option, but he obviously is lacking the upside. Like, he's finishing inside the top 10 as often as Colin Morikawa, Siwoo Kim, and things like that, but he's just not finishing inside the top 5 nearly enough for that to kind of warrant that. So he provides you with some safety. The lack of upside over there is problematic. As you can see, his top 5 market is putrid. This column over here, these columns in the yellow, if you're betting to return $100 in every market, every week a golfer plays, this is how much money they would have returned or lost for you over that period in time. So we've got the win percentage. Obviously, Colin hasn't won in forever. Patrick Cantlay hasn't won. Harry Hall, hasn't won on a regular field event. You can see here his top 5 market is pathetic. So if we kind of zoom out a smidgen over here, you can see that the correlations between the top 5s and the top 5 finishing rates. But sometimes even guys with like poor finishing rates, like Max Greasom, he's only finishing inside the top 5 in 8% of his starts, but he's actually been profitable in that market because his odds are so short. Like they're so long, they're so friendly that, just 1 or 2 couple finishes inside the top 5 really helps, because the other top 5 bets you're losing aren't going to be that significant losses, because the odds are like 8-1 type thing, 10-1. So guys like Siwoo, who's a bit more popular, who doesn't finish inside the top 5 nearly enough, his odds are too short. So you can see, like, even though he's finishing top 10 quite a lot, 15% of the time, not quite a lot, but 15, he's still losing you money in that market because he's priced too aggressively. The price isn't fair for what he's putting out there. So that's kind of using these 2 columns. You can see exactly how that goes about calculating the power rankings. And you can just see if you're betting these dudes top 5s, top 10s, top 20s, or to win, you can see, okay, how have their odds kind of reflected that over the last little while. Here we have the course history strokes gained and the comp course history strokes gained. And the reason I like to do both of these things over here is the course history is really interesting, because you're going to get guys with good strokes gained course history, but the actual finishes at the event aren't necessarily the greatest. So here's Cameron Young. He leads the course history column. He's got a 6th and a 2nd. Let's try and find a good example here, like this dude. Chris Kirk got the 10th best course history strokes gained, has not finished inside the top 12, top 10 in 5 of his starts. So he's super consistent. We've got 4 top 21s, and a 44th. But just because he's so consistent, constantly making the cuts, he's getting ranked as the 10th best course history guy. But if you're looking for safety, then this is the column to look for. But if you're looking for upside, I mean, he hasn't finished inside the top 10 at this event ever since 2019. So that's kind of just describing, just using both of these kind of columns is going to help you determine, okay, is the strokes gain misleading me here? Do I want upside? Do I not want upside? Am I going to look for the best finish here? Trying to see who's the best finish. So you can kind of use the best finish as a benchmark to kind of see what's going on. But again, I'm not going to get too crazy about a Brand Snedeker down here, wherever he is, with the 5th place finish, but nothing else after that. So you got to kind of tippy toe around, and that's where the course history strokes gain is going to help you out there. You can see, okay, the rest of his finishes have been quite putrid. So that's one way there. And while we're on this side of the model, I also just have the best recent forms over here with the best finishes in these columns. So you've got all of the last 10 events on the schedule. So this is using a time frame, not a last 10 rounds for this specific golfer. It's just using the last 10 on tour. And you can find their finishes over here as well. So you can compare that with strokes gained total, which is going to be somewhere over here shortly once I unfilter over this stuff. So we're back to this left-hand side of the columns. We've got the weighted strokes gained over the last 12, 8, 4, and 2 months. So what that means is I've gone and I've grabbed strokes gained data for the last 12 months. I've popped it into a sheet. Then I popped the last 8 months worth of strokes gained data, put the last 4 months into another sheet and the last 2 months into another sheet. And I've combined those strokes gained together so that, I don't know why this banner's on here, but I've combined them to kind of get the last 2 months of strokes gained data is going to be in the last 12, 8, and 4 months worth of data. It's going to be in there, but for the last 12, it's only 1/6 of that portion. So this way of doing it is going to help us kind of figure out, okay, whose recent form is going to kind of get sucked in 4 times for the last 2 months, whose last 4 months going to get sucked in 3 times for the last 4, 8, and 12, whose last 8 months are going to get sucked in twice for the last 8 months and the last 12. And then obviously we're just using the last 12 months once. So those first 4 months of the last 12 are only going to be in the weighting one time. That's basically what I'm trying to explain over there. So we've got the strokes gain total off the tee and approach. And then I'm using not the rankings over here, but the total strokes gained on approach and off the tee to generate its own number to find out, okay, strokes gained ball striking, because some guys' driving performance may not allow him to gain as much strokes on the field on approach because he's hitting a lot more wedges into the greens, but gaining significantly more off the tee. So I like the ball striking column over there to kind of identify, okay, who's actually just hitting the ball well. Some places need more approach. Some places need more off the tee. Strokes gained ball striking helps you with that. And then the same thing with around the green and putting. There's a lot of guys that miss a lot of greens and then they chip it close and give themselves makeable putts to gain a lot of strokes gained putting. If you're looking for just strokes gained short game, that combines both of these together. Then I've also got the data golf ranking. This is an average. This is just the ranking as of right now, just to get a feel for what they are grading each golfer in the field. So as you can see here, we can maybe compare our rankings versus data golf's rankings, just to take a look at what's going on, getting a complete sidetrack over here. But it helps keep us in play. Obviously, I'm very bullish. They are very bullish on Hideki in this field, and this is just this field. Obviously, the best golfer in the world is Scotty Scheffler, and then we got Rory, and then and then. So there we have all of that stuff going on over there. I'm going to dive over to the right-hand side here now, where we have the round-by-round scoring averages. So I'm not even using a full tournament's worth of scoring. I'm using a single round. So, for instance, at the Travelers last week, we had guys that finished their rounds early, that we had Friday and Saturday. There were 2 rounds in the 4 that were playing under par significantly, and then there were 2 rounds that the scoring average was over par, which is hellish conditions, because I've got your easy scoring conditions is -1 or better for the field scoring average. Medium is between half a stroke under par and that -1. And then hard conditions is anything under par up until half a stroke under par. And then hellish conditions are when the scoring average is over par. So I've got each one of these over here for us. Not using the tournament because, like I said, there could be easy and hellish conditions in the same week, given the difficulty of the course when the wind blows or something like that. So you're going to use each round versus the tournament because I think that's a better reflection of what they can get up to. You can use this a lot for if the weather's picking up and it's an easy golf course, but you want medium or hard scoring conditions for Showdown. You can go and find these guys in here and filter on them to find, okay, whose scoring conditions do what. I'm going to get rid of 2024. That doesn't really even matter. I don't even know why it's in the model anymore. But we've got distance over here. This weighted distance and weighted accuracy is coming from the same situation as the pink stuff we just went through from the last 12, 8, 4, and 2 months. So it's kind of keeping up to date with the most recent gains. So Ben Griffin still making his way towards the top of the distance charts, but he's 61st there. Accuracy, how often do they hit the fairway, all that kind of stuff. And then here off the tee, 7,200 plus is strokes gained off the tee on courses that are 7,200 yards and longer. On shorter courses, I'll be using 7,200 yards and shorter to kind of identify, okay, because driving accuracy on a short golf course, if you're using driving accuracy from a long golf course where everyone's just trying to hit it as far as possible, regardless of hitting the fairway or not, that's not going to translate to a place like Harbour Town or the Travelers or anything like that, because they're not hitting the same aggressive tee shots. They're hitting 3-woods, they're hitting 3-irons on these shorter courses. So the accuracy number isn't going to help you because it's for every week. Whereas off the tee on specific venues, you can see how different golfers play certain conditions better. So usually you see long iron players kind of matching up the off the tee on shorter courses because they're hitting a lot more long irons off the tee than actual drivers, which is kind of interesting. Now we move over to the approach play metrics over here. Weighted approach metrics to specifically match the proximity areas at this course. So when you go to a place like Torrey Pines, everything's going to be from 175 yards and beyond. So as a result, the weighting in my model is going to weight those proximity buckets a lot more than wedges. So at a place like the Travelers, you're going to have a lot more wedge play being included in the overall weighted approach play. So you're going to be using these metrics a lot more than you'll be using the 200 plus metrics over here. So we'll just move over. So yeah, it's bucketed. These are all from the fairway to start off with. When you'll see over here, if there's a rough in the name RGH, it means it's from the rough, because we've got fairway proximities and rough proximities. And then we have got good shots and poor shots over here. A good shot per data golf for a wedge is hitting a golf ball to 6.5 feet. That gains you half a stroke on that single approach shot, and that's classified a good shot. So gaining over half a stroke is what they classify as a good shot. When you lose over half a stroke on a single shot, that's a poor shot. So some courses with a lot of water, you're looking for poor shot avoidance, this column over here. But in some places like the Rocket Mortgage, you're looking for guys that hit a lot of good shots because you have to set yourself up for a lot of birdies. Now, what I noticed is like Patrick Cantley, Ben Griffin doesn't hit a lot of good shots, but they gain a lot of strokes still. So, it can be a little misleading at times, but it also can help you find an edge randomly in certain areas. So we've got strokes gained. Proximity is how close to the hole you're hitting. Fairway green in regulation rates is basically how many greens in regulation you're hitting every round from that proximity range. Good shot, poor shot, just spoke about that. So that's from 100 to 150. Then we go 150 to 200, and then 200 plus are the last buckets from the fairway. Then we make our way over here to the rough. How well are you playing out of the rough from inside? This little less, if it's aiming like this way, if it's aiming left to right, I know I'm flipped around a bit, but if it's making an L, that means less. That's what this sign means. So less than 150 yards from the rough. These are the strokes gain metrics over there. Or you can just see under 150 rough green regulations, blah, blah, blah. So we've got those rough conditions. We've got, them from 150 and out as well over here too. Then we make our way over to the putting side of things. We've got bent grass putting from 5 to 15 feet for the last 24 rounds. We've got bent grass putting for the last 24 rounds. So just in general, outside that 15-foot range, trying to figure out why I have 5 to 15 feet is because that's the most predictive of all the putting proximities. Guys that putt well from 5 to 15 feet typically putt well from 5 to 15 feet. A putt from outside 15 feet can easily gain you 1 or 2 strokes. If you like Tommy Fleetwood making a 65-footer, that's going to completely change it out. But you're not going to be making 65-footers all the time. It's very volatile. But from 5 to 15 feet, I've done the research. That's the best range to kind of identify the best putters from that specific range. because it's a bit more repeatable. It's like close enough to the hole, but also still far enough to be difficult. So the guys that suck are going to miss more of those. And then what this is doing is it's taking the bent grass putting over the last 24 and it's comparing it to the actual putting from in the pink over here. So we're using this stat over here to kind of determine, okay, how is their putting at the moment and how does that compare to bent grass putting surfaces? So if we go over to the bent grass over here, Keegan doesn't necessarily see a massive jump. You know, the better the number. So as you can see, Matthew Fitzpatrick is 6th in increase in baseline. So it's taking the last 24 on bent and you're minusing that from the putting for the guy that's right now. As you can see, 16th in this field for overall putting, but he's also 6th in the field for bent putting. So actually he's first in the field. So you're seeing a massive jump in strokes gained from that range. Then we've got birdie or better percentages. How many birdies or eagles do they make in a round of golf? And then we've got the birdie or better percentages for easy scoring conditions in the last 24 rounds. Because birdie or better rates, Scotty Scheffler's birdie rate around Oakmont is going to be high compared to the rest of the field. But his birdie rate at Oakmont is not going to be nearly as high as the birdie rate for some jabroni playing the Rocket Mortgage. So you want to make sure that you're using birdie rates that reflect the course conditions that they'll be playing. So we've also got bogey avoidance, but I don't really care about that on this course, so it's not in the model. I should add it in there, though. We've got par 5 scoring averages. This is kind of basically what you're looking for, guys that are playing well on the par 5s, going across all different courses for the last year. And then we've got the round-by-round scoring averages. So you can use this for identifying first-round leaders. We've got Cristobal Del Solar in here, sitting 4th. He's actually regressed a little bit in the last little while. Colin Morikawa, Ryan Gerard, and Keegan Bradley actually gain more strokes than he does. Usually he's right at like 2nd, to like Scotty Scheffler or Rory McIlroy or someone. But he's sitting in 4th, and you can see he just sucks it up afterwards. So that's round 2, round 3, round 4. You can see, okay, these are the rankings for these guys going that way. Keegan, obviously, he gets worse slowly as it goes along, which is kind of interesting to see. Ryan Gerard, typically very, very good the first 2 days and then kind of falls apart over the weekend, specifically on Sunday. So that's how you can interpret the scoring by round over here. We've spoken about the course history stuff, the recent form. And then I have a little fortune cookie filter situation over here. So basically taking the weighted strokes gained for this dude over here. Does he finish inside the top 20 or top 10? Yes, he does. He should be getting 2 points because he's inside the top 10 and top 20. So do we get 2 over there? Yes, we do. So basically, we're looking for a top 10. We'll get you 2 points. A top 20 will get you 1 point. Colin Morikawa's strokes gained from 100 to 150. He's one of the best wedge players in the world. That'll check out there. His strokes gained from 150 and in is not very good outside the rough. In the rough, he's outside the top 20, so he doesn't get a box over there. The last 24 rounds putting, I got to do a better job changing all of these labels, but you get the gist. So the last 24 rounds putting on bent grass, he's not going to check those boxes, is he? Nope, sits outside the top 24. But again, this is where the model ranking comes into play because he's still okay on bent grass, but he's not top 20. So he's not going to check that box, although he's pretty close to checking it. So that's what I was meaning by the sum and the whole parts being greater, all of that stuff. Then we've got the last one, specific strokes gained off the tee. Colin sits probably inside the top 20, but not inside the top 10 when it comes to strokes gained on shorter courses. That is there. So I guess I just changed that to specific off the tee. I think it's actually got to do with distance plus accuracy. So the distance isn't going to count, but the accuracy is. So that's kind of what the situation is there, I believe. I'll double check that later. Birdie scored on easy courses. What's Colin's situation here? 23rd in the field. So he doesn't necessarily make as many birdies on the easy courses as you'd think. So he doesn't check that box, but he's had a couple top 10s or top 20s at this golf course. Yeah, he was 2nd in one start in his career, and he's getting the 2 points over there. And then how many top 10s and top 20s has he had in the last 10 starts? 1, which is not very, very good. Well, 2, I guess. So he's got 2 points for that. And then we go to the easy difficulties, 3 points. There's a 14th at the Masters as well. So we're getting 3 of those there. Easy difficulty scoring conditions. We go over to the side here. He kind of 22nd in the field. What's going on there? That's probably pulling in the wrong number. I need to fix that. As you can tell, it's early on a Tuesday morning. You need to get a couple things figured out here, but you can just use the filter cookie over here. Go from A to Z, go to Z to A, get these guys out of here. And then there's Cameron Young. Obviously got a lot of top 10s, a lot of top 20s this year. Got a lot of them at this golf course. Checks a lot of putting stats, solid off the tee, that kind of jazz. So that's basically this part of the model. If we're taking a look at round 2 showdown, this is from the Travelers, I believe. So you can use this tool over here to kind of identify all of that. The round 2 price, the projected ownership that I make every round. Check all the boxes via the stuff at the top here. Ball striking after round 1, top 15 for signature events, top 20 for the big field events. After round 1, strokes gained putting. Who's lost putting but has a very good spike rate? So what I'll do is I'll take this, I'll go filter by condition, go less than 0, and see, okay, these are all the guys that have lost putting. Then I'm going to go over here, spike putting performances. So what it means by spike putting is I've got the last 100 rounds of golf for these golfers. What is their 25th best round of those last 100 when it comes to strokes gained putting? Because you're looking for a decent ceiling. You want to see what they can do when they're putting well. So basically their top quarter of putting. Obviously it's going to be better like if you're getting the 99th putt, the second best putting performance of the last 100. That's difficult to kind of get done because that's like a 2% chance that happens. But give me the 25% chance of something happening for that golfer. What's that going to give us from an upside perspective on the putting side of things? So then I'll filter here Z to A. There's Denny McCarthy, obviously gaining close to 2 strokes when he's putting, his quarter top part. It's called the 75th percentile. Anything above the 75th percentile, closer to 100th percentile is the 100th best round of the 100. It's kind of confusing, but you get the gist over here. That's what spike means. Then we've got the spike rounds. Basically, I'm still filtered on putting, but you're going to see, okay, Ludwig, he gains 3.6 strokes total in 25 of his last 100 rounds of golf. So that's very, very impressive. It helps you identify, okay, who are the spike potential candidates for a specific round. As you can see, Scotty Scheffler's absurd, 4.7 strokes gained in 25 of his last 100. And that's 4.7 just for his 25th best round. That doesn't even include his 20th best round, his 15th best round of the last 100. So that's basically what's going on over there. So we're using the putting column over there to identify, okay, who's going to have a bounce back putting performance. Then we're looking for round 2 strokes gained. As we've identified, there's certain guys that play well in specific rounds. The round 2 strokes gained is right over here. We can see, okay, who was round 2's guys? Luke Latton, Sam Burns, Ryan Gerard, Shane Lowry, all bounce back on Fridays, have some of their best rounds over there. Then we're going to be looking at spike rounds. We've just gone through that. The good shot baseline is basically taking all the stuff I explained about on the approach side of things a little bit ago. Yeah, is good shot from inside 150, good shot from 150 to 200, good shot from 200 plus, good shots from inside 150 from the rough, good shots from outside 150 in the rough. And it is using different percentages for the specific courses to generate this approach score over here. And that's good shots. So you're not going to see Scotty Scheffler in the good shot rates over here because he doesn't hit a lot of good shots, which sounds weird to say. He hits a lot of safe shots. He's constantly giving himself good looks, but not nearly as good as the likes of Alex Noren, Tom Hoagie, Siwoo Kim, Colin Morikawa, all more aggressive players from the various ranges that matter at a specific course. So you can use this to identify, okay, who's going to give themselves a lot of good birdie opportunities. If they have a specific, like a really good approach day, they're going to have a lot of good birdie looks. So that's kind of what this column and these columns over here are kind of giving us. Then we're looking for top 20 in the model. That's basically when you just filter on the guys that are inside the top 20. And then you can figure out, okay, how many boxes have they checked? These are the color codes to kind of determine that. Then we got the green is good. Sometimes, usually AM tee times are more predictive of better golf than PM because the course dries out. The wind typically picks up as the day goes along, but sometimes that's not the case. But as you can see here, AMT times like an 8 p.m., 8 a.m. Daniel Berger on round 2 had a nice bright green because that's just how that works. Then what I do is all of the columns in here that we've used to generate a power rating, which is the number that generates the power rank. So as you can see here, Rory's number 2, Scotty's number 1, but the power rating is like two shots, basically 2 points better than Rory. Which, if you're looking for 2 points better than Rory, you got to go like all the way down to Sam Burns. That's the difference between Rory and Sam, which is the same difference between Rory and Scotty, kind of thing, if that makes any sense. That's not even 2 points. You got to go to like 2.8. So like all the way down here somewhere, 3. Like that's the difference between Scotty and Rory and the rest of the field. Like that just shows you how well Scotty's playing. So the power rating makes a big difference, and then we use that to generate the projected points for the specific course, and then the power rank obviously is the binary ranking for these different things over here. So what the power rating gets is strokes gained ball striking, strokes gained total. That's kind of from the previous round. That's getting sucked into the power ratings. Then we're also using pre-event model power rating. So who generates the most power rating in my pre-tournament model, the one that we just showed you over here, the Maniac rating. Maniac model. Then we got the round 2 strokes gain that's getting pulled in. We got the spike rounds that are getting pulled in. We got the spike putting, which you kind of just use as a metric to kind of determine what's going on with the bad putters. And then the approach play is getting sucked in here. So pretty much anything with a yellow background is generating the power rating over there. That's kind of how the color coding works for that. And then finally, we've got dollar per power rating, ignoring ownership. So Scotty's actually got a negative projection over here because he's $13,600. So even though he's got a massive power rating, that just doesn't calculate well in the model because his price tag is so high that the points he's scoring isn't going to necessarily translate as well. But for instance, like a JT, who was $8,800 and just a couple, like a full point behind Rory, who was 10.7, that's a $2,000 saving, and he's only going to score like 5 points less than Rory. So as you can see, the points that he's scoring versus the price that he's costing is a good deal. So that's the cash side of things. It's going to give you a good cash option. And then the dollar per power rating GPP rating is including the projected ownership percentage, because as you can see, this gets even, it gets dire for guys that have high ownership projections. So for instance, like a Tommy Fleetwood, you can see the GPP rating is lower than his actual cash rating because he's going to be 23% projected ownership. You're looking for leverage in GPPs because you want low owned guys that no one in the field has that can pop, so that you are the only person that has that, along with a couple others. 45% of the field having Scotty Scheffler is not going to differentiate you that much. So that's basically how this all works. Back to the comp course history, which gets included in the Maniac model. I've just pasted all the stuff that's for the Detroit Golf Club this week. Here are every single strokes gained for the last couple rounds since 2019. Here's TPC Craig Ranch, where you can find all of that. Here's TPC Scottsdale, Vedanta Vallarta, Memorial Park Golf Club, golf course. And then we've got a little bit of TPC Toronto, which happened not so long ago. So that's basically what we're doing over there. And then the Maniac's placement tool, if you want to go over here and basically look for a bet that you want to place, you can go to Patrick Cantley. I know that he's currently minus 105 for a top 20. It's going to tell you, okay, yes, Patrick Cantley's top 20 percentage. He is second in the model for safety ranking. And when you type in minus 105, this implied column over here is going to tell you, okay, minus 105 means that there's a 51% chance that this happens. Patrick Cantley finishes inside the top 20 55% of the time. Patrick Cantley also is second in the safety ranking stuff, which is top 20, top 40 stuff. So it's going to give you a solid 4% edge over there. That's basically how this is working. Here's Ben Griffin. For plus 220, top 10, it's implying a 31% probability. But what's really happening is let me actually just pull this down one more time. I think there's what's really happening is Ben Griffin is number one in upside for me. So he's getting a lot of boost from that. And he finishes inside the top 10 34% of the time. So that's 3% more than what it's implying. And the model suggests that he's a great upside option. So that's why he's got a 12% edge in that department. So that's basically how this Maniac's placement tool works. Then we've got the one and done column over here. We've got guys every week that it readjusts all of this stuff. So Patrick Canty, Luke Clanton, Colin Morikawa, Matt McCarty is what it's saying is the best one and done option for the week. Do not look at my one and done picks. They have been atrocious. So it is what it is. What other stuff have we got going on over here? Just if you're looking for my bets as I've been placing them, here they are. You know, I still need to update one or two after like a bad stretch. That's on me. But we need to add a couple more. I think we had like one or two. I think the CJ Byron Nelson isn't in there. One or two things, but I'll get that in there soon. We are up on the year, which is great to see. All right, so that's basically it. If you have any other questions, that was just a super impromptu one. I don't even if I had the right microphone going, it does look like I did. So just for you guys in the Discord, not super professional, but just impromptu. I know a lot of you are asking questions about how to use the model. This is how you use it. So I will have more for you guys on this kind of stuff when I have it nice and scripted and it's nice and tidy for y'all. But always ask me any questions. You know, DM me, ask me questions in the Discord, wherever you're in the mood for. I'm always happy to help you guys use the tools that you guys are paying for. So I appreciate every single one of you for being part of the Model Maniac Patreon. Let's have a great week. Whenever you watch this, let's have a great week. Catch you guys later.